Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, I had a voice for radio, so today we are going to be looking at Xerneas, because you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I think it's time to take another look at Xerneas. I think, in this particular format, Xerneas has a great place in the metagame. But don't just take my word for it. Listen in. I'm going to explain it. In fact, I've made a whole video about it. So grab yourself a nice cold beverage and let me explain. We've had Xerneas for a while. Xerneas came around in the X and Y base set, which was quite a while ago at this point, since we're deep into the Sun and Moon block at this stage. And really here, it's the attack Geomancy. You grab two of your bench Pokemon and you give each of them a fairy energy from your deck. You don't have to get them in a discard pile. You don't have to get them in your hand. You attach straight from the deck. This has always been the best and most reliable way to accelerate energy, if you can get it. Not to mention the resistance to Dark with Speed Darkrai coming around, and the 130 HP, which is really good. 120 HP means you get one hit KO'd by Gliscopod GX with First Impression. 130 means you don't. 120 means you get KO'd by a Gardevoir with 4 total energy. 130 means it takes 5. We like the HP, we like the resistance, and ladies and gentlemen, we love Geomancy. You are weak to metal here, but Metagross is actually going to get a one-hit KO regardless, and that's the only really good metal Pokemon around, so for the moment, we're cool. And that saw a bit of play here and there, and then Xerneas Break came out, and this looked like it was going to be amazing. This looked like it could shape the meta. And although it saw a bit of success here and there, it never really stomped like we were hoping it would. 2 fairy energy, 20 damage for every energy attached to all of your Pokemon. Now I should mention at this stage this is energy, not fairy energy. So once you've got the 2 fairy energy on the active Xerneas, you can attach double colourless energy to your bench Pokemon and it will do an extra 40 damage. And to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, this combo makes itself. You use Geomancy to get all your fairy energy out, and then you just sit here hitting with Livestream for decent damage and attaching extra energy and double colourless energy to do as much damage as you can, and not unlike Speed Dark. Once you get enough energy on the field, you win the game. It really is as simple as that. The thing is, if we look at some of the top decks that are around at the moment, they're slower decks. Metagross takes a few turns to set up all of those Metagross. Gardevoir takes a few turns to evolve up the stage 2s and get the energy on the field. Vikavolt Bulu takes minimum 1 turn to evolve up into Vikavolt, potentially more. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what opens a door for Xerneas. We don't have a lot of these fast decks that we had before, and that means Xerneas can spend a couple of turns using Geomancy, and once you get enough energy on the field, it's basically all over. Now, your only real main attackers here are Xerneas and Xerneas Break. Yeah, I know with Xerneas you can do 100 for free energy. Firstly, that's not particularly good. Secondly, you have to discard an energy to do it, and that kind of goes against the point of the deck. We want to get the energy, we want to keep the energy. Now, there are a couple of other Pokemon we want to be using. Firstly, Tapu Koko. Now, Tapu Koko is good because it's got Flying Flip, 20 damage to all of your opponent's Pokemon. You can just soften them all up while you buy a couple of turns to attach your extra energy. But the other reason we love it here is because it's got free retreat. If we're going second, we need the turn 1 Geomancy. Honestly, going first we do as well, but going first means you've got a turn to set up. You need to get that Xerneas in the active. What better way to do it than having a Tapu Koko with free retreat? Yay! We've also got Mewtwo from Evolutions here, which is a fun little tech for certain matchups. It's got Psychic. We're not playing any Psychic Energy to use Barrier, 20 damage plus 20 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Quite simply, this is for stuff like Gardevoir. If they're going to attach a load of energy to try and take you down, you can take advantage of that with Psychic, and you're playing double colourless energy anyway, so you can just attach double colourless and hit for decent damage. And I suppose at this point it's worth pointing out that all of your Pokemon with which you're attacking are single prize Pokemon, and we are in a very GX heavy format at the moment. The only one that isn't really a big GX Pokemon is Greninja, but you're trading 1-for-1 with Greninja and should start earlier, but more on that in a moment. You also might want to consider Oranguru or Octillery just as a bit of extra draw power to keep you going in the mid to late game. Now, in terms of other cards that you really need to be aware of, obviously you've got Bridget. Everyone's playing Bridget at the moment, but you need to get your army of Xerneas out. There's nothing worse than using Geomancy when you don't have 2 bench Pokemon, because otherwise you don't get 2 energy, so you need your Bridget nice and early, and obviously you need your Tapu Lele to get the Bridget, just like you do in every single deck at the moment. You need Max Elixir because you need to get energy out as fast as possible, and Max Elixir is a great way to get this energy out and onto the field. Plus, of course, if you're going second, you might need to retreat something like an Oranguru or a Tapu Lele. Now, we're going to be playing Fairy Garden to give you free retreat, but if you attach an energy to a Pokemon to give it free retreat, you can't then also attach an energy to Xerneas to use Geomancy. Oh no, wait, yes you can, because you use Max Elixir. You want to be using experience share here because you want to be saving the energy. You really don't want to lose the energy when your Pokemon get KO'd. You're generally going to have 2 energy on an active Xerneas. If you've got 2 EXP share on the bench, then when your Xerneas gets KO'd, you don't lose any energy. Now, I know people are playing Field Blower here, but you've just got to be careful. Most decks are only playing 1 or 2 Field Blower, so as long as you don't just put all of your EXP share down at the beginning, you can bide your time, play 1 at a time, and then when your opponent's out of Field Blower, you can go with it. Although annoyingly, if your opponent plays Field Blower right before they take the knockout, that will be annoying because then you don't get the energy back because there's no time to attach a new one. I've mentioned Fairy Garden, but worth saying it again, you don't want to pay the energy to retreat. Remember, this is a deck where you get energy on the field and keep it on the field. So the last thing you want to be doing is paying a retreat cost. And you need Rescue Stretcher here. You can only play 4 Xerneas in your deck, and the ideal situation is having 4 Xerneas and then another 2 so that your opponent has to KO 6 Xerneas to win the game. How do you do that? Rescue Stretcher. I know your opponent may well Guzma up a Tapu Lele at some point during the game and then take out 4 Xerneas for the win, but you might not need to play Lele, or they might not have the Guzma. You just need more than 4 Xerneas here. Now, there are some other options which you can take them or leave them. Fairy Drop is quite nice for healing 50 damage if you've got Fairy Energy attached, which you will. And Comfy's quite nice because it means that if you've got Fairy Energy attached, and you will, you are immune to special conditions. It helps against Froakie and any potential bubble shenanigans they might use to try and buy a turn to set up, but that really is about the only good special condition around at the moment. It's not something you should be overly concerned with, but Comfy's one of those. It's a single card, it can fit into your deck nice and easily, so you're probably not playing it now, but you want to keep it in mind for the future just in case. Fairy Drop I like, but I honestly just don't think you'll find the room. Now, if we look at some of the matchups here, this is why it's a potentially good deck at the moment. There's been plenty of times Xerneas hasn't been viable, but I'm not sure this is one of those times. If you look at something like Tapu Bulu Vikavolt, they should take a turn or 2 to get going. Then you've got Tapu Bulu, but if they don't have a Fighting Fury belt, and as I explained in my Tapu Bulu Vikavolt video, link in the description, generally nowadays you need Choice Band to hit the numbers on bigger decks, so they should have to discard the energy to get a KO. And they're doing that for a single prize. They may well run short of resources. I quite like your chances here. Against Gardevoir, they're going to need free energy to take a KO, but they're also going to need to take a couple of turns to set up. And the whole time you're getting energy on the field. And they're expanding a lot more resources for a KO than you are once you've got the energy on the field. Again, none of these are auto wins. You're not just going to sit there and go, ha, Gardevoir, I win. But then again, you're not going to sit there going, oh, Gardevoir, I can't win. It's a case of, okay, few Geomancies, hit a couple Max Elixirs, we will be fine. Although, as a side note, try and play your Max Elixirs early, because, of course, the more you Geomancy, the fewer energy are in your deck, and the less likely it is that you're going to hit them with Max Elixir. Against Volcanion, this is a little bit rougher, because they do just get a one-hit KO with Turtonator. With Volcanion, they will need to use a Steam Up. But then again, they need a few turns to get the energy on them, so it really becomes a race. And I know this might seem a little bit circular, like I'm saying the same thing over and over again, and you're right. But most of these decks take a couple of turns to get going. If you can get enough energy on the field, you will win. It sounds obvious, but the fact that all of these decks need a couple of turns to get going is exactly why Xerneas is playable now and viable now when it wasn't particularly in the past. Golisopod does not get a one-hit KO with First Impression, which is nice, and of course, you're really not vulnerable to Garbodor because you're not relying on abilities. Turbo Dark, you have resistance, and they're doing the same thing you are. Their attack is very similar. But you've got resistance, which gives you about the same HP with your break and their GX EX. Actually, given that you're hitting for even numbers, then you've got the same HP, except you can use Choice Band on them, but they can't use it on you, and you're taking 2 prizes, they're taking 1. This should be a decent matchup. Now, Greninja is a little bit awkward. Again, it's down to your start. If you take the first couple of prizes, you should be doing all right. But then again, they can sometimes take multiple prizes in a turn if they set up. Having said that, your 130 HP means that 2 Giant Water Shurikens will not get a KO, and you're really not vulnerable to Shadow Stitching. So this again looks like a decent matchup. None of these are auto wins, ladies and gentlemen, but nor are any of them terrible. Although I do worry that Metagross is really difficult because it's going to take 13 energy to get a KO, or 11 plus a Choice Band, and they will be getting easy one-hit KOs on you. The last question to consider here is, should you go second? Because a lot of people think you should, so that you can Geomancy. But here's the thing, in an Evolutions format, you just want to get your energy on the field, so maybe you go second to do that, except your opponent gets a turn to set up. So if I'm going second, my opponent gets a turn to try and get all their basics out before I've done anything. I know going second to Geomancy turn 1 sounds like a good idea, but what if you start Oranguru? You need to have an energy to retreat, plus you need to Fairy Garden, plus you need to hit a Max Elixir, and that's just to hit the Geomancy. You might not do it. I would still go first. I know some people like going second with Xerneas. Maybe in other formats I'd be inclined to agree, but you're just giving your opponent an extra turn to start setting up their stage 2s. I wouldn't recommend it. So, I think this is good. I'm certainly going to be testing it. In fact, on my stream on Thursday, 7 PM UK time, twitch.tv/PTCGRadio, I intend to be testing this quite thoroughly indeed. But anyway, I want to know what you think, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me in the comments. Go nuts. Be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. That's where the live action happens. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus pods, etc., you can do so at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.